Good advice.
So this would be a good time to issue a warning to any kids that might be listening.
You're going to edit
This
that.
might be some mature in nature conversation here. So.
Oh, here we go.
Well, you're definitely a Catholic superstar in a lot of people's eyes.
Oh, not
But at the
mine
same
or
time,
my
we know
kids.
you're human, right? You're human, and so what's your greatest struggle, or what's the cross? What's the thing that just like constantly the devil's trying to get after you, and you know your weakness, and that you're just trying to
This
fight.
might be just for him and the priest. I don't know.
No, I don't know.
You know what I
I'm with sexual sins. Always every guy. If he said he's not,
We're male.
if he's not right, if he's not tempted by pornography and things like that, he's lying. I just said one time I gave a talk on being husband and wife and sexuality. I said, how many men here are not attracted or tempted by pornography, sexuality, unclean thoughts? And I said, raise your hands. And a couple guys raised their hands. I said, you're liars.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
there's
No, I'm sitting right next to my wife.
And one of the best things a husband can do is to tell his wife. First of all, every man. I don't really have any big thing like that. I'm with my wife all the time. We have a wonderful time.
That's
I'm
great.
happy, and
Yeah.
I'm happy. We're not struggling in any way, and so I'm really pleased with our life and what God has
Praise
done
God.
for our life,
Great.
and no big thing that's hanging over my head. But I remember we've been married 47 years, and on our 25th anniversary, I planned ahead because back, and even back then younger, all those sexual temptations and things were there, and I realized that my best line of defense was my wife, if she understood. Okay, so I planned a weekend on our anniversary. I got rid of the kids. And we spent the whole night the whole weekend in the bedroom. And yes, we had a wonderful time together. But mainly what it was is I had collected a bunch of books to read together. And one of them was called The Spiritual Man. Another one was called Letters to Philip and Letters to, where a father wrote letters to his son and his daughter about married life and sexuality and things. And we read those books together. And I read to her about men that 95% are tempted by this, and I said, I want you to understand what goes on in my head and in my body, because you don't have testosterone.
Yeah.
And I said, I wish that you had testosterone in your body like I do for 24 hours, so you'd understand what men are like. And she said, I wish I could too, because she said, I don't understand it.
Right.
And so I explained to her all about testosterone and all about the sexual male urges. And I said, God gave them to us, but it's also because of the fall and because of the world we live in, there's these temptations. And I said, but I want you to know them, because I want you to be my first line of defense.
Yes.
So when I go out on a trip and when I come home, I want you to ask me, did you win the battle for me while you were gone? See, so this is the kind of thing a man and a wife should communicate, because I learned that a woman is turned on, and what she needs is romance and safety. And there's nothing my wife likes better than for me to say, I have eyes only for you.
Amen. Amen.
And yet she knows that men now are driven by sight and smell and sexuality, and you may, and it can rise up in a moment.
Yeah,
sure.
And so I showed her a picture of two like radio faces. One has like 50 buttons and dials and gears, and it says female. This one over here says male, and it just has an on-off switch.
Yes.
Yes.
So I
True.
explain these
Exactly
things.
right.
Well, now
That's great.
I hadn't done that yet. In 25 years, we had talked, but this one is like a heart-wrenching, soul pouring out to her to tell her what goes on inside of me, and she told me what goes on inside of her. And I realized that if a wife can understand her husband's physical and sexual needs and work with him, and he understands her emotional need for love and security and being the only one, you put those two together and you've got a happy couple. So I give a talk now called Men, Women, Sex, and Heaven. How sex is a road to holiness.
There you go.
Good sex is a road to holiness. Because if a husband and a wife understand their needs and they're very different.
Yeah.
And they complement each other if they understand those things and they communicate about them. Even if you have to take a weekend off and get rid of the kids and just sit and say, I'm going to talk to you about things I've never talked to you about before.
Yeah.
Or what's
anyone
going
else.
on in my
Yeah.
veins and what testosterone is. But after that, my wife said that was one of the most fantastic weekends, and
That's
it
great.
set the whole stage for the next 25 years.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
great. Good advice.
So this would be a good time to issue a warning to any kids that might be listening.
You're going to edit
This
that.
might be
and put
some
it in front.
mature in nature conversation here. So
It's real.
Well, we
It's-
didn't get too raw.
No, it's
easy.
it's very real, and and it's difficult to be. That conversation has to be built on a foundation of trust.
It does, absolutely, absolutely.
And being vulnerable like
Yep.
that is.
And also,
key.
people in marriage need to know when you're young and you meet this beautiful girl and it's all you can think about, and you marry her and that's all you can think of. You can't wait to get home from work or whatever. And that is what we would call maybe infatuation. You know, it's just this, you're driven by this emotion. But as you get older, that's not always there.
Yeah.
Right.
It still is. Many times I still am very romantically in love with my wife. I am.
Yeah.
She's still beautiful, and I tell her she's the most beautiful girl in the world all the time. Probably 10 times a day I tell her that. And we say we love each other back and forth at least 20, 30 times
Yeah.
a
That's
day.
great.
But what I've learned is that as you get older, the love is different, but it's deeper and richer.
Yeah.
To the point where when I got both of my knees replaced in April, she took care of me and she was there every minute. And I said to her, and I also put up blogs every day with my experience of this thing with my knees. And I told her, I said, if you ever get in a car accident and you're crippled from your neck down, it would be my honor to push you around in a wheelchair and take care of you. But see,
that's
it
it.
goes from the emotional, infatuated kind of love, which is necessary. It's
Yeah.
there, but it draws you in. And if you got to realize that there's what's the songs about? I don't love you anymore. You know, the love is gone.
Oh, yeah.
But they're referring to that infatuation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you realize that you're moving along and it's now a much deeper, richer love, I would never go back to the earlier form with knowing what I have now.
Yes.
It seems to be that way through life, right? Like
Yeah.
I always say, like, I'm so glad I'm not in the dating scene.
Oh my goodness.
We said that last week.
I'm glad I'm
my
not a
goodness.
teenager.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Oh, yeah,
I'm glad
yeah.
I'm not in my 30s anymore.
I mean, to have that conversation on your first date is like, so have you always been a guy? You know,
Right. You've always been a guy. I mean, I'm from an age where that just was not accepted.
Right.
Oh,
right.
sure.
Right.
I remember once, first time I heard there's such a thing as a homosexual. I said, "What's that?"
Yeah, right.
That's disgusting, you know.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed my attitude about that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.